Welcome back. As the coronavirus rips through businesses, many are finding it difficult to stay afloat, even the large corporations. Logistics has been hard hit, and the impact is felt everywhere as hospitals and governments aren't getting their PPEs, and the cost of certain products has skyrocketed.
Problems with the global supply chain have disrupted the flow of goods, but I spoke to a few homegrown startups that have managed to plug those gaps and are seeing rapid growth as they move quickly to help governments, hospitals, and other industries get their goods in a timely and efficient manner.
I can imagine those are kind of annoying neighbors that
So are these machines new?
Yes, so these machines are still new. So it came out about the beginning of last year. Previously speaking, it was all manual, so it took us around 45 seconds to do one parcel. Now it actually takes about 3 seconds.
So how many items do you process here a day?
These are pallets, so every day we have around 40 to 50 pallets of stuff, which is around 5 tons. So you have to process those 5 tons in a day. You don't actually need to have a cabin anymore.
Wilson Chan set up his freight forwarding business in 2014 because he found ordering goods from popular platforms was costly and complicated.
We give you a unique username and an address in the US, or address actually around the world. So you use that as basically your domestic shipping address for deliveries. So when you get these domestic deliveries, you just bring that back and then we forward it for you to wherever you want to pick it up. On average, a user saves around 30%, inclusive of logistics, on the value of the goods.
With consumers getting smarter about global arbitrage on pricing, services like Wilson's are doing well. They currently have 675,000 users over 11 countries, along with warehouses in 9. And as people stay in and social distance, they're letting their fingers do the shopping more and more.
We still see very strong demand, especially in Hong Kong. I think after the whole Hong Kong situation, and I think the home office thing allows people to do more shopping than I think they would have previously, which makes it very interesting because now everyone's in a habit of buying stuff online. So we don't see the trend going away.
He says they saw the mask buying trend among their Hong Kong consumers in early January.
Once the supply ran out in Hong Kong and the price started skyrocketing, people started looking everywhere. So our Japan warehouse, our our US warehouse, our Italian warehouse, UK warehouse, all exploded. Korean warehouse, Thailand warehouse, everything exploded with masks. And basically what ended up happening is we shipped something like 35 million masks during February and March, just for Hong Kong. If you look at it, 90% of all masks are still made in China. So it goes from China to the US back to kind of Asia in general.
During the pandemic, their customer base expanded to include governments, and goods reversed outbound from Hong Kong. In this warehouse, is this mostly consumer goods? Do you have like another floor that's mostly PPEs?
Yeah, so actually right now this floor itself is dedicated to consumer goods. We actually have another floor that's all dedicated basically right now to masks. It's actually double the size of this. So the square footage on that one's around 30,000 square feet and it's all full of masks right now.
And where are those masks going?
All over the world. So we have orders from Germany, France, Spain, US. Basically every week we're just always sending stuff outbound.
So far, they've sent 50 million masks outbound in 6 weeks. Their infrastructure and logistics setup of small air freight orders was a good match for another startup that partnered with them. Minesh Pore's platform was set up in January. It allows users to source directly from manufacturers. What mask is this?
This is the KN95s. These are the ones that are one of the most popular items.
How much business have you done in this?
All these products together, we haven't done a breakdown, but in all these products together, like I say, we've already shipped more than 10 million US dollars. That's like almost 100 million Hong Kong in 7-8 weeks.
Minesh Pore had been planning his outfit for over a year.
Retailers across the globe, brick and mortar retailers are declining. According to KPMG data, in 2018, there were 9,900 brick and mortar stores that went out of business, while retail industry was still jumping. That means that a lot of small retailers, small online sellers, etc., were going in business. They won't be able to travel as much.
They wanted to build a platform to make virtual buying for manufacturers easy. At the time, they didn't imagine it would be a pandemic that would be driving their business.
Coronavirus has been our biggest catalyst. We would have got to that business probably in 5 years which we did in a few months. We started getting some people approaching us saying, we need products. We just don't want you to find only the suppliers, but also help us find the product and get the product out of China and get it to us.
In order to do that, he decided to partner up with 3 other startups, including Wilson's. Minesh's company sourced manufacturers and had their own freelance sourcing professionals who could provide best matches for buyers. But he needed people on the ground in China for quality control, and he needed data insights on supply and demand to keep pricing under control and delivery on time for his clients.
It's not just about sourcing the factories, but it's also making sure the documentations are correct, the factories follow all the norms of the markets that it is being shipped to, the testing standards are met, the packaging standards are met, and then the shipping times are met.
One of his now clients, a clinic in Budapest, Hungary, learned the hard way when they first tried to source their masks on an e-commerce site.
I placed the order, and then a week, 10 days go by and no shipping. And then, I waited another week, no masks, and the tracking information wasn't working. And then I had to complain. And ultimately, this seller returned my money, but this was after 4 or 5 weeks.
Through his alumni network, he found out Minesh was supplying what he needed.
He had access to factories that are producing the masks. And I asked him, does he have the FFP3? Price was almost, it was almost too good to be true. If it was anyone other than Minesh, I would have thought, okay, this seems too cheap. But the thing is, I don't think I've ever bought anything directly from a factory before. I think it took a little over 3 weeks, but we got them.
For Dennis, having properly certified products is key, since he says there have been lots of fakes sent out, and ending up with any of those would be bad for his business. He's now looking at sourcing antibody tests from Minesh, since one of his manufacturers is on Johns Hopkins' recommended suppliers list.
The other thing that we're talking about is getting the antibody tests. There is a list of, I think it was put out by Johns Hopkins, of antibody tests and even the PCR tests. Minesh has, one of his suppliers has these antibody tests. One of the manufacturers is on the list. So we're looking at ordering some of those, both for this clinic in Budapest and for our soon-to-open clinic in Rome.
Aside from small clinics, Minesh says they've been working with state governments, city and national hospitals. Their partnership with a manufacturing and design company gave them access to a wider clientele and people on the ground in China who could run quality control with manufacturers. Michael Hung, whose family has had the business for 40 years, says it was a big change for them to go from promotional products to PPEs.
Our clients came to us and we were in a unique position because we've got people on the ground in China that could assist them with sourcing products.
Since January, they began supplying PPEs.
Globally, an entirely new category has been developed overnight, really. And so they have also shifted their business models and are looking at masks, they're looking at hand sanitizers, they're looking at all kinds of PPE products. And so the entire industry has really changed.
What kind of difference does that make, having people on the ground in China to verify? How does that differentiate the service you provide than, say, others looking for PPEs in China?
The reason that people are running into problems is because there was a lack of due diligence. They weren't looking at the audits, they weren't looking at the reports, and most importantly, they didn't have people that were actually inspecting the product. That's really the key and the difference in working with a company like ours, right? And that's why you're seeing so many problems with counterfeit products and defective products. Right. People don't know what they're being shipped.
And since you've changed into these PPEs, would you say her business has grown this time last year to now?
We're expecting we could possibly double our business this year. We prepared for possible layoffs and restructuring, and just the opposite's happened. We've been hiring aggressively. In fact, we don't have enough people, so we're still looking for more people.
To complete the chain and make buying easy for customers, data is key. Max Ward, who's had over 20 years' experience with big logistics companies, founded his company this year to create more transparency in the supply chain, so companies had a better idea of buying trends, what is available to source, along with delivery lead times. They provide the insights on Minesh's platform, which show product availability, certification, cost, and delivery time. Consolidating all this data also brings costs down for customers.
What we're seeing is a rapid shift in terms of how quickly companies and buyers need PPE. And when we look at those different types of lead times, we can make a big shift from air to ocean. And it basically brings down the logistics cost per piece, 50 times. So instead of looking at 40 or 50 cents per piece, you're looking at 1 cent or less.
And the data allows buyers to keep up with the ever-changing list of recommended providers, along with trends of other items that might see a rise in demand.
This set of in-demand items and SKUs seems to be constantly changing. And the set authorized suppliers for those SKUs, one day it's 70 factories in China and the next day it's 14. We're able to provide a view quickly into what inventory is available from what suppliers, and also interject promotions and recommendations that are valuable to those buyers.
So as the virus changes people's lives dramatically, it's also changing the way business is done. With supply chains, transparency, collaboration, and having the speed to react has been key to the success of some of these small but feisty startups. It could be just what this small territory needs to adopt as a whole. Well, that's our show for this week. Next week, we look at how one man's mission to travel the world before returning home has been put on pause by the pandemic.
And how a lack of bodies is making it difficult for medical students here in Hong Kong. That's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.